Hello, welcome back to Tread Aboard. So last time we talked about environment and how important it is to fulfilling dreams and being the person that we want to be. Well, equally important is our internal environment. So I'm going to speak today a little bit about what I do and what I've found thus far. I kind of have learnt to think about it in kind of three different distinct terms: mental, physical and spiritual. I know spiritual is a hang-up for some people. They don't like that kind of term. If it's easier, think in terms of thinking, acting, action and feeling. And there are a number of kind of routes in, and I'm not here to tell you which ones are better or worse than others. I will share what I find. I find coaching to be very important in all of these areas. Sometimes you need, I feel, expertise from someone else to be able to see what's going on, to help you go a bit deeper, to find out what's occurring inside and therefore have the awareness to make different choices. Why is all this so important? Well, in the same way that your external environment is that you're like a mirror of it, it works the other way as well. In fact, if you're working on your external environment, your internal environment will begin to change anyway. But equally, if you're working on your internal, your external will begin to change. It's kind of a two-way street, and you kind of need to be doing both. What I do is, so I have a coach for, an entrepreneurial coach for the mental side of things, and it covers some of the spiritual side of things as well. And I have a personal trainer for the physical side of things. The mental side of things, I also do meditation, 20 minutes every day. I also do writing, which I find very good for my mental state of kind of becoming aware of what's going on in my mind every day and just being creative with that. The physical side of things, I also do a lot of cycling, and whenever possible I like to do yoga as well. Yoga is good because it kind of fits, well, at least spiritual and physical, but possibly mental, you could argue as well. It's kind of an all-round activity. And then the spiritual side of things, it's mainly, as I say, my coach that coaches this sort of thing, but I also read a lot of books on the subject and just are inquisitive around these topics. Hang out with quite a lot of actors that are into that sort of stuff anyway, so there's quite a lot of thinking and discussion into that. All these things sort of help you become aware of yourself and how that fits into the world around you. It's sort of I suppose it's all these things are a sort of a tool to connect to yourself and therefore the world around you. Really useful in changing the sort of energy, the dynamics that you are being, and therefore as that changes, so you will attract a different thing around you. I think there's a famous quote, something along the lines of change the way you look at things and the things you look at change, which I think is a really on point quote actually. It's the way our beliefs and our thinking, our thinking is sponsored by our beliefs, our belief systems, and if we can go on the journey to explore what's going on inside, we can actually literally change our belief systems, which will then change our thinking, which then changes our behaviour, which in turn changes our experience, the things that we do day to day, everything around us. It's actually an incredibly deep topic and it never ends. You'll never reach the bottom. What I will say is, I remember when I first started this sort of exploration into my internal environment, it's very unnerving and it's very scary, because it's like holding a mirror. You can't hide from yourself. As you go through this journey, more and more you'll be kind of confronted with these things that, some of which you will like, but some of which, especially when you start, you won't like. But it's vital work in being able to be the best version of yourself you can be, because we need to understand who we are in terms of our belief structures, what we're doing day to day, why we're doing it, any trauma that we have going on there. Because only once we are aware of these things can we make alterations, can we change them, can we deal with them. But scary stuff to get going. I think it gets, as you go deeper, it gets, in one sense it gets harder, but in another sense it gets easier. You've kind of been through the process before, so in that respect I think it's easier, and you become slightly more at ease at sitting in your discomfort, if that makes sense. However, the stuff that you get to as you get deeper is obviously more traumatic, more deeply, submerged, repressed, whatever you would call it. So it's often tougher stuff to actually work through, and as far as I know, it's a never-ending process, but it has huge positive impact on your day-to-day activity and actions. And if we're looking to fulfill our dreams, being the best that we can be is going to be the best way of getting us there. Other things that I find useful, I make sure I kind of program time for things like colouring and compass drawing and sort of creative arts and crafts. So spiritually, that is really great for me. Or if you don't like spiritually, feeling wise, it's really great for me. It makes me feel nice and creative and good about the world. And it's also, they're the sorts of things that obviously whilst you're doing them, although you're involved in a task, it's quite good for the brain as well. It's quite meditative in one sense, because your brain is able to just focus gently on it and also wander. Doing all these things, as well as making you effectively and efficiently the best person that you can be and having an immediate impact on your results, all these things also, I find, allow space in your day-to-day ambitions, your day-to-day work schedule. And you've seen how organised I am about the things I do day to day. Providing space for these sorts of activities encourage space for dreams to float up, to percolate to the surface, to whisper in our ear. It's very easy, I found, to just work and work and work until you get blunter and blunter and blunt, less effective and less effective and less effective, without really allowing any space for these little whispers to come to you. And sometimes dreams don't scream and shout in your face. Sometimes they are, deeply repressed things that just sort of gently whisper, and we just need that space to be able to allow it to percolate to the surface. But also, in doing so, we sharpen ourselves in having kind of time away from our ambition, from our clearly defined goals. Allowing that space just means that we come back to it with more conviction, more clarity, a little bit more full of vim and ready to go again, because we've given that time to ourselves. And I think actually probably the biggest thing I've learned through meditation is just having 20 minutes of just me being wherever I am at, without judgment, just wherever I am at today. This morning I sat down and I felt weird, and I thought, oh God, I'm just going to burst into tears. Actually, I just burst into laughter. So we often go through life not really knowing what's going on internally. We assume, our mind tells us what we think is going on. So the journey of actually looking, of actually checking, of actually understanding our instrument, really, the thing that creates every result in our life that we're ever going to get. Our body, our mind, our soul. Like, giving space to those things has to be crucial work, and exploring them. And I think if dream fulfillment is where we are looking to head, then it's probably right up there with the most important stuff that we have to do. So that's how I do it. I have a personal trainer, I have a coach, and I meditate a lot. Lots of people I know use psychotherapy or psychiatry, or I don't know what the correct term would be. I suppose either would work depending on your circumstances. As I said, yoga is a really common one, or it doesn't really matter what it is, but find whatever your things are, but keep in mind this kind of threefold being that you are, and make sure that there's some time for them. I actually program time for these activities in my day-to-day life, because I find if I just give space, and without kind of nailing down what I'm going to be doing in that space, I tend to just carry on working. Whereas if I physically give space to that, then I do that. Yeah, I think everyone should find their own things. I think some things are obviously more beneficial than others, and I think, trial and error, and to a degree just experience will tell you which really work and which really don't. I spent a lot of time personally, just from my experience in life, doing a lot of drinking, taking drugs, and I'm not judging anyone that does that, because obviously that would be I'd be a complete hypocrite if I did that, because I did it myself. But compare that to personal training and meditation and yoga and colouring, to my personal day-to-day life experience, and this is infinitely better, because there is definitely a negative, for me anyway, attributed to those. They have negative impacts on my life rather than positive ones. And it's about finding the ones that actually genuinely support you towards fulfilling your dreams. Those particular endeavours tended to, I find, they were a distraction, avoidance. They actually took me away from my dreams. But again, it depends what your dreams are. But yeah, internal exploration is where it's at, and if you can get used to exploring, knowing and learning about your internal environment, and then being able to make different choices, you'll find that your external will begin to change. And by the same token, if you're doing simultaneously working out, exchanging your external environment, you'll notice that your internal will change at the same time, and eventually you will have this sort of meeting of internal and external, which I've started to spot in aspects of my life. I guess it never really completely joins, or maybe it does, I don't know. But probably death. That's probably when it absolutely meets. But it's in that journey of internal discovery while simultaneously changing our external, that actually the compound effect is that we head ever increasingly more towards our dreams. If that makes sense. It's probably awful use of language, but I think you know what I'm kind of getting at. If we're doing both at the same time, the overall environmental change means that we're able to move at the most efficient and effective speed towards our dreams. Even if, and this is a little word of warning that I've been caught up in before, even if it seems to be time, these things, this internal exploration seems to be a time out away from what's important, the day-to-day activities. Actually, this is far more important. It's a kind of a twist, it's a flip of the what I suppose is society's normal way of looking at things, in that you can never outgrow the person that you are. Never. It's impossible. So a priority has to be developing yourself. You can't develop yourself if you don't know what's going on inside yourself. So these explorations are absolutely vital, day by day, week by week, in really challenging yourself and growing. And in that growth, growing into the dreams or the fulfillments, the position that you want to be. Okay. Only through our dreams can we be truly free. It was ever thus, and ever thus will be.